Oh, hi everybody. Ezra Levant here. It's what? Let me just check. It's I forget what day it is. It's November 8th. Hey everybody, it's November 8th and you're watching Battleground. It's all a blur. I mean, the days turn into months, turn into years, and but we keep fighting. And I'm delighted to say we have 1.28 million YouTube subscribers. You wouldn't know it by the fact that so few people get our YouTube notifications when we go live. I mean, there's only 88 people watching right now, even though allegedly 1.3 million notifications went out. I think it's pretty clear that YouTube is throttling us. I'm not here to complain. I'm here just to point out the ubiquitous censorship of the social media left, which is all of social media. But it's great to be here, and it's great to be with the Rebel. We're coming up on our 5th anniversary in February. It's hard to believe. Time has flown. I remember when we started our project, it was not voluntary. We were all laid off by Sun News Network when the CRTC decided to euthanize it. And Stephen Harper, in a decision I'll never quite understand, said, yeah, that's fine. I mean, do you think that a Liberal Prime Minister would have stood by and allowed some out-of-control appointed bureaucrats to euthanize a left-wing TV station that, by the way, didn't take, government money? It wasn't mandatory carriage. It wasn't subsidized with taxes like the $1.5 billion a year CPC gets. It's just inexplicable to me. And Stephen Harper funded the CBC, but let the CRTC kill Sun News Network, which is a shame. Not only was it a great place to work and we did a lot of good, but it was much needed balance. And there is none of that balance. In fact, things have gone so far the other way. Now all the media is either bought, like the CBC, or rented, like the bailout media. But we're still fighting. We started Rebel News, or the Rebel.media as we called it back then. There were, if I recall, 7 or 8 refugees from Sun News. We were all laid off together. And our friend Hamish Marshall, who provided us with some technical savvy. Thanks, Jane, for your super chat. I appreciate that. And Hamish helped give birth to the Rebel, and he helped do some of our website stuff while we focused on the journalism, so it was great. He moved to Toronto and worked out of our offices here for the Rebel, and then he got involved in the Conservative leadership to succeed Stephen Harper. He backed Andrew Scheer. I don't think most people thought Scheer would win. In fact, he only got 20-something%, if I recall, on the first ballot, but he just kept growing. He was everyone's second choice, and he became the leader just by a squeaker. Of course, he was everyone's second choice for in the general election 2 weeks ago. So that second choice thing, it's that's another way of saying loser. But you got to admit that Hamish had an eye for the chance, and he gamed the system well. Anyhow, he left us when Scheer won the leadership, and he ran the campaign. And I have my criticisms of the campaign, mainly on a messaging point of view, an ideological point of view. I don't have a lot to say about the technical logistics that get out the vote or how the money was spent. I don't think that's actually important. Donald Trump spent a fraction of the money that Hillary Clinton did. It wasn't about money. I don't think Trump had the get out the vote machinery that Hillary and the Democrats did. I mean, obviously he had the support of the Republican Party, but it was his message, his ideas that won. It was the strategic ideas that won for Trump. And I think that's what caused Andrew Scheer to lose this last election. I paid fairly close attention. I see some super chats, I'll get them a bit later. I paid fairly close attention, and I still can't honestly tell you what the value proposition, what the ballot question was for the Conservatives. Why would you vote for Andrew Scheer on that day in that voting booth? I don't know what they were trying to convince people of. That he was not Trudeau, well, of course, we knew that, but why should someone positively vote for him? There are a lot of hot issues out there that we care about here at Rebel. I'll just name a few of them. Free speech, political correctness, cancel culture, trans extremism, open borders immigration. Now, all of those are extremely flavorful and they're controversial, which is why we're talking about them. I mean, you generally don't talk about things that are resolved or about which there's no controversy. Seeing eye dogs are great. Yeah, we pretty much all agree with that. There's not a lot of seeing eye dogs are bad out there, which is why it's not news, it's not debated. The controversies are what are debated. And Andrew Scheer refused to choose his controversies. And he also, in my view, lacked the courage to take a stand against the Liberals' chosen controversies. An obvious one was Greta Thunberg, the environmental extremist child actor from Sweden. Scheer just sort of tried to avoid the whole thing, and he was blamed by the media for not attending her rally. Look, you're not going to get that Greta Thunberg vote to begin with, so why not wedge against it and say, she seems like a nice girl, she seems like she's being puppeteered by her handlers, but we're against it for this and that. Like, why not push against it? Why not own the pro-industry, pro-work skeptic vote? Immigration. People who are for open borders immigration are not going to be voting for Andrew Scheer. Why not say what Francois Legault did in Quebec? We want to reduce immigration by 20% so we can focus on integrating those who are here. Like, such a baby step. Why not take a stand for free speech? I mean, really, that is almost a seeing eye dog type, we all agree type issue. But there were so many censorship moments in the campaign, and Andrew Scheer was silent in all of them. In fact, on some of them, he was the perpetrator. If you'll recall, when he actually had our own David Menzies handcuffed. When Justin Trudeau's debates commission kept us out of the debates, Andrew Scheer could have said, let him in. But he didn't. How could he, since he himself handcuffed us? There, you know what's interesting? Can you find my tweet where I tweeted my Twitter stats the other day? You know, I tweet too much. It's a real time waster. It's also a real source of news, Twitter. I curate my list of people I follow. That's how I get my news on Twitter. And I follow a lot of people I disagree with. I think that's important to do on Twitter. You don't want to just follow 1,000 people who echo back at you. So that's how I get my news. Justice just getting the stats. I posted them a day or two ago. I posted a screenshot on Twitter of my Twitter stats for the month of October, which was largely the election month. And, you know, we had 26 million people look at my tweets, which is a big number. That's a pretty big number. But we'll put it on the screen when we find it. If you click on media, if you go to my Twitter feed and then click on media, it's just a screenshot of my Twitter stats. I think I posted it yesterday or the day before, probably 2 days ago. There we go. Thanks very much. So this is my Twitter analytics, and you can see that I had 26.4 million impressions over the month of October. For some reason, it didn't give me any impressions on the last 2 days of the month. I don't know what the glitch there was. But do you see October, I think that's October 7th, that huge spike there? Yeah, exactly there. That day had 3.2 million impressions. An impression is what they call a view. There's also engagements, which is like a click. What was that? What was that on October 7th that caused 3.2 million people to read my tweets? You know, Donald Trump retweeted me a couple months ago, and it got like 900,000 impressions, and I thought that was pretty cool. What happened on October 7th that got more than 3 times the attention of a Donald Trump retweet? Well, it was when we went to court to fight against Trudeau's ban of Kian Bexte and David Menzies from the federal leaders debate. That's how much Canadians care about free speech. I mean, I almost can't believe it. 3.2 million views of my boring tweets from a courtroom, like I was, and Justice Zinn said this, and the lawyer said that, like it was legal gobbledygook almost. 3.2 million people cared. Imagine if you're the only political leader of the right. Well, I guess Maxime Bernier was there and he talked about free speech. But if you're Andrew Scheer, that's a huge issue for you. And you don't have a word to say about free speech, cancel culture, extreme political correctness. What's that phrase in the New Testament? Salt that's lost its saltiness? If you're salt that doesn't have any saltiness, what are you? What is salt that doesn't taste salty? What even is that? That's Andrew Scheer. What does he stand for? Okay, we know he stands for the dairy cartel. That's like saying we know Justin Trudeau stands for marijuana legalization. But what else? Well, with Trudeau, corruption, etc. But that's not really a substantive stand. My point is, I think the reason why Andrew Scheer lost the election is because there wasn't a lot of there. There was little micro things and little, hints and feints and nuances and subtleties, but I don't know what he stood for. And I'm not just saying that, I'm not like hiding it. I paid fairly close attention. But I want to show you, so yesterday, all the Liberals were in Ottawa for their caucus meeting, and the day before, the Conservatives were. By the way, all the parties have their caucus meetings on Wednesday. That's the tradition. But Trudeau was still surfing some gnarly waves, dude, out in Tofino. So he literally made his entire parliamentary delegation, all the MPs, all the senators, wait an extra day for him just to get in a few more gnarly waves. I'm not even kidding you. I might show you some clips of the MPs coming back to work because we scrummed them. But actually, the much more entertaining and interesting clip was when Hamish flew to Ottawa for the caucus meeting, and he was scrummed in the, I think it was the Ottawa airport, by a CPC reporter. I think it was Katie Simpson. Take a look at this. Take a look.
What are you expecting tomorrow?
What?
In terms of caucus meeting, what kind of messages Mr. Scheer going to deliver?
I'm just here to meet with some people.
Will you be taking part in caucus at all?
I'm not sure how that's any of your business.
Oh, well, I'm just curious. Does Mr. Scheer have any sort of message that he hopes to deliver to caucus to shore up support?
You'll have to ask Mr. Scheer that.
What are you expecting tomorrow?
By the way, I think that's the right attitude when it comes to the CBC. Just to remind you, I see some super chats about the rainbow poppies and about the 11,000 climate signatories. I promise I'll get to that. Let me just finish up this election point. Need I remind you that literally in the middle of the campaign, the CBC and its chief political reporter, Rosemary Barton, and its secondary political reporter, John Paul Tasker, sued the Conservative Party in the middle of the election. I mean, if you didn't have contempt for the Trudeau-loving state broadcaster before that, surely anyone with red blood in their veins as a conservative in the Conservative Party should hate the CBC for suing them. And Hamish Marshall was the campaign manager. It would have been bizarre had the campaign manager of the Conservative election, who had been sued by the CBC, would have a friendly chat with the CBC reporter in the Ottawa airport. I think he showed her just the right degree of contempt. In fact, not even enough. Why did he bother to talk with her, and why was he smiling? I love that answer. I'm not sure it's any of your business. It's exactly true. But here's my point. The election's over, and Hamish, anyways, was not on the ballot. So why are you getting stroppy, as the Brits would say, with the CBC after the fight? I mean, the CBC won, right? They won the election. So now you fight? How about during the election? How about when the CBC sued you during the election? How about you act like you've got red blood in your veins, like you're salt that hasn't lost its saltiness yet? If someone walked in here right now and sued me, I mean, I'd look at it, I'd give it to my lawyer, I might be mad or whatever. But I'm pretty sure I wouldn't then say, hey, all right, we'll put that over there. Can I take you for dinner? Hey, let's go hang out. Like, I mean, what self-respecting person in the world gets sued on Monday and then sits down for a heart-to-heart interview with literally the plaintiff on Tuesday or whatever the days were? I mean, if you lack any self-respect, if you bend the knee to the CBC, even after they abuse you, and I'm not just talking about the journalistic abuse, but they literally sued the Conservative Party, and you're still friendly and chatty and obedient and compliant with them afterwards? Can you get the David Menzies handcuff clip? But you handcuff Menzies. So David Menzies, who's a pretty friendly fella, he can ask an irritating or annoying question. I'll grant you that. He can be a little pokey, but he's not mean, and he's never rude. In fact, I told him the other day, I've known him for 20 years, I've never heard him swear, even in private. Like, he's pretty straight arrow. So you handcuff David Menzies of Rebel News. And actually, in that same video, I want to show when Jamie Ellerton just went crazy on Menzies and said he wasn't allowed to come in. That was so over the top. I mean, I don't think Jamie works out, but it had a roid rage feeling. I'm not saying Jamie's on steroids. That's my point. I don't think he is, but it looked like a roid rage, like it looked crazy. There was some sort of a madness there, directed at David Menzies of the Rebel. Here's Jamie Ellerton. This was one of Hamish's staff on the campaign saying friendly David Menzies was not allowed to come to cover an event.
As this is not a public event and you're not accredited media, so we're going to ask you to leave, please.
How do you get to be accredited media?
You need to be accredited by the campaign. You are not accredited media, so we're going to ask you to leave, please.
And why is that?
You are not accredited media. This is a private event. We are going to ask you to leave, please.
No, you keep saying that, but why am I
I'm not doing an interview right
media?
here right now. You can get in touch with our press
Well, that's
office.
what I was invited for.
You were actually not invited. You are not accredited
Okay, then.
media. We're going to ask you to leave. You can get in touch with the press office and learn more about our
Is this the Andrew
credentials.
Scheer event or the Justin Trudeau event?
Mr. Menzies, I'm going to ask you to
Yes.
leave, please. You're not accredited.
What is he announcing that you don't want? Who are you, by the way?
I'm with the campaign. You're welcome to step outside here.
I'll stay here.
I'm with the RCMP. It's a private event. Please walk. Sir, please walk.
Anyways, so that's how you should treat the media that disparages, denigrates, attacks you all day long because they're literally on the payroll of the government and you're the opposition. That's the state. That's how you should treat the CBC state broadcaster, who then uses taxpayers' dollars to file a lawsuit against your party in the middle of the campaign. So the way Jamie Ellerton treated friendly David Menzies there, I called it a roid rage. It just was very irritating. Makes no sense against David Menzies, who wouldn't hurt a fly. it would make sense against the CBC, but I think it was actually after the lawsuit that Scheer sat down for a private one-on-one with the CBC. Maybe my order of events is wrong. So my point about Hamish, can we play the Hamish clip one more time? Is Hamish had it right, but a month too late. Take a look. We're digging it up. Like, what's the point of fighting after the battle's over? Take a look.
Tomorrow.
What?
In terms of caucus meeting, what kind of messages Mr. Scheer going to deliver?
I'm just here to meet with some people.
Will you be taking part in caucus at all?
I'm not sure how that's any of your business.
Oh, well, I'm just curious. Does Mr. Scheer have any sort of message that he hopes to deliver to caucus to shore up support?
You know, have to ask Mr. Scheer that.
What are you expecting?
That was the right approach. 2 weeks too late? 2 months too late? 2 years too late? What did you think sucking up to the CBC for the whole campaign would do for you? Speaking of which, so Andrew Scheer on a couple days ago had his get-together with his caucus, and he was scrummed outside, and the media party just don't stop. Here, take a look at this. This is him being asked not about his policies or about his plans or about his actions or about his legislation. He's asked about his theological beliefs. Take a listen.
Your personal view. So my question for you is, do you believe that being gay is a sin?
Look, we made it very clear that during the election, in the last few months and years, our party is inclusive. We believe in the equality of rights of all Canadians. We are, my personal opinion is that I respect the rights of every single Canadian. That is my personal opinion.
But to the question.
And again, they went back to it, and that moment went viral, and all the media chirped in. And actually, can you call up Robin Urbach's tweet on that, where if you can find it. The excuseology for. Actually, I replied to it. Search from Ezra Levant, and the keyword is Wiccan. There we go. Yeah, okay, so here's what Robin Urbach, she was with the CBC, I think she just moved somewhere else. She said, Trudeau, Singh, May aren't getting questions about their views on gay marriage because their actions have effectively answered them. There is no ambiguity. Scheer, on the other hand, dodges straightforward questions. That's why he keeps getting them. I thought that was just a very interesting... See, the thing is, Justin Trudeau, if you ask him, says he's a good Catholic, and pro-life is really the essence of Catholicism. I actually, other than particular beliefs about Jesus, being pro-life is probably the core tenet of Christianity. I'm not a Christian myself, I'm a Jew, so correct me if I'm wrong there. And I think he actually in the past has himself said that he was pro-life, although I don't believe that for a second. Jagmeet Singh is obviously an Orthodox Sikh. He wears a very dramatic turban and follows the Sikh religion closely. Sikhism is about as pro-life as it gets. Elizabeth May actually fancies herself some sort of priestess. I think she trained in some seminary or something. I think she's more of a Wiccan than a Christian. But all of those leaders, Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh, Elizabeth May, claim positively to be religious and to believe in religions and faiths that are pro-life. They do. Why haven't any of those other leaders been asked, not will you introduce legislation on abortion or whatever, which would be an action. But do you, in your personal and theological and faith belief, believe that homosexuality is a sin? That was the question in the scrum there. Is being gay a sin? Not, are you going to ban being gay? I don't think homosexuality has been a crime in Canada since the 60s. And by crime, I don't mean homosexuality itself, but homosexual acts. They actually were a crime, I think, until the 60s, although the law really wasn't enforced before that in recent decades. Is being gay a sin? Actually, that's not even a pro-abortion question, is it? Sorry, I was conflating abortion and homosexuality. I'm sorry about that. In my mind, there's this bundle of issues: pro-life, pro-gay. Let me correct myself for the last 2 minutes. The Catholic Church, Sikhism, Christianity in general, especially if you consider yourself a priestess, homosexuality is a sin if you read the black letter texts of those faiths. So why weren't Trudeau, Singh, or May, or any Muslim candidates, Ahmed Hassan, Omar Al-Jabra, Mariam Monsef, Ikra Khalid, other Sikhs, Bardish Chagger, etc. Why haven't they been asked that theological question? Robin Urbach's excuse was because their actions remove any ambiguity. No, they don't. Andrew Scheer, Jagmeet Singh, Elizabeth May, Justin Trudeau, their actions on gay marriage are all identical. The law was settled before any of them were party leader, and they've done nothing to change that. When it comes to actions, legislative actions, policies, whatever, all the leaders are identical. So why is only Andrew Scheer asked not about his actions, which he seems to answer ad nauseum, but asked about his own theological personal views on sin? It's an interesting question, I don't deny. But why can you not ask Jagmeet Singh the same question? Is that racist? I should say that Andrew Scheer's answer comes across, as he always does, weak and evasive. I think you either say that's a bigoted question, and how I feel in my own religion is no different than how Jagmeet Singh feels about his, and I'm running for public office, not a private thing. Like, you could push back, for God's sakes. How about show some self-respect, like Hamish showed in the airport? You just can't make Andrew Scheer into a leader. I'm sorry, it cannot be done. And it's a reminder of where he came from. He was a child, barely in his 20s. For a few months, he worked as a clerk in an insurance firm. Then, in his early 20s, he ran for public office, became an MP, very quickly became the deputy speaker and then the speaker. And for 10 years, he never fought a fight. He never led anything. He was the compromiser in chief. He was the moderator of question period. I don't think he ever voted once as speaker. He only voted to break ties. He didn't attend partisan caucus. He didn't answer questions himself. So he never had to lead. He never had to face adversaries. He never had to tangle with the press. That's why there was nothing on him when he ran. There was no history of goofy quotes or because he was never in battle. Anyone who's in battle has some battle scars. Anyone who speaks and fights the battle of ideas every day is going to say something that, out of context, 5 years, 10 years later, looks a little quirky. But not Andrew Scheer, because he was basically frozen like Harrison Ford in Star Wars in that block of metal for a decade. He was not in the arena, he was in the bleachers. And not only did that mean that no Canadians knew who Andrew Scheer was. I mean, sure, he's been an MP his whole life. He's done really nothing else with his life. But no one knows him. I bet you $1 you could go on the streets of Toronto today with a big old picture of Smiling Andy. And most people would not know who he was. They just wouldn't know because he's been a void, a nullity. And it's not like he had all these magical powers just ready to manifest. You could see in that scrum, he doesn't know how to deal with it. Look, we all know he's pro-life, and we all know if in his heart of hearts, he probably thinks homosexuality is a sin. But he's a modern man, and so he doesn't make a fuss about it, and he doesn't talk about it, and he's a politician who wants to win, so he just keeps his thoughts to himself on that. I'm certain that's what he thinks. I won't repeat my story of when I met him when he was first elected. I met him and his dad and his whole family, and they were telling me how tough he was on social conservative issues, how socially conservative he was. I don't need to tell you that story again. I can assure you that Jagmeet Singh is much more religious than Andrew Scheer is. And probably half the Muslim MPs in Trudeau's Liberals are too. But they have never been asked about their moral view on sinning. Obviously that's because only Christianity is being purged from the public square, not Islam, Sikhism, or Orthodox Judaism for that matter. All right, it's 12:32, and I spent a lot of time on that. I'm going to go through and catch up on my super chats, and then I want to, I think I've got them in an email here. Thank you for that. Okay, here we go. Jane Bray, $1.99. Thank you. Proud Boys Calgary. Global warming has hit Calgary. Oh wait, it's Chinook. Yeah. Jane Bray, $5. Great video about the 10,000 climate losers. I'll get back to that. It's a fun one. Proud Boys Calgary. Quebec is the guy who brags about having money in the bank after cashing his welfare check. Isn't that the truth? I see news that Quebec's got this $4 billion surplus. Yeah, that ain't your money, sister. You got that from transfer payments from Alberta. MVP, rainbow poppies is one of the most ridiculous things I've heard of. We'll play some news. We actually interviewed the gal, the teenage girl, and her dad yesterday. Mindful Mac, Kekistan will never fall. Don't tase me, bro. It is steel. 2020 Trump in America, stay strong and true Canadians. All right. Primpal 08, Scheer was a weak leader from the start. If the CPC keeps him, they will hand the Liberals a majority next time. He reminds me a lot of Mitt Romney. That is a really good comparison. The same vibe. The same vibe there. Yeah, look, here's the thing. I know for a fact that there are members of Parliament who are not happy with Andrew Scheer's leader. That's sort of obvious. I don't think I'm telling you any news. Remember that he was in third place and second place in the leadership until he squeaked by. And then he was not kind to those he beat in the leadership. In fact, he sort of ran them out of town. He ran Kelly Leach out of town. He ran Brad Trost out of town. He, I think it took two to tango with Maxime Bernier. But you purge all your leadership rivals when you only won with 51% of the vote. You're not winning them over. Jean Chrétien beat Paul Martin, and then he appointed Paul Martin as finance minister. Keep your friends close, your enemies closer. Andrew Scheer threw out a lot of people. One of the things that bugged me most was when he threw out Salim Mansour, a progressive Muslim candidate, professor from London, Ontario, banned him from running as a candidate. He ran for the PPC. In fact, the thing about the People's Party is it became sort of a refuge for everyone thrown out by Andrew Scheer. And we know that cost the Conservatives at least 6, 7, 8 seats, the vote split. There were 6, 7, 8 ridings where Scheer's Conservatives were so close that even the slender vote that the PPC earned was enough to lose that riding to the Liberals in most cases. So that wasn't the difference between a majority or a minority or a win. But you throw out enough people and then you don't give people a reason to get excited. I'm not surprised that he did poorly. All right. I think I've caught up on on that stuff. I'm going to skip the caucus. I've talked about it enough. I want to talk to you a little bit about, let's have a palate cleanser, as they say in the restaurant business. Can I show you an old clip I saw of Joan Rivers? You know who I'm talking about? She was a comedian when it was tough to be a female comic, and you had to be funny. So many female comics these days, it's just woke feminist politics with a laugh track. That didn't work in the 60s and 70s and 80s. You had to be funny. And Joan Rivers was very funny. And a couple of years ago, she wrote a memoir, and she went on, I think it was CNN. And instead of asking her about being funny, they just said, well, you made fun of this, and you made fun of that. And she actually stormed off the show. And it was gorgeous. Can I show you that? I just saw this yesterday. It just caught my eye. And it reminded me of how things were not too long ago. Take a look.
Okay. Well, what about when it is about something, that really does seem off limits to a lot of people? I mean, even in your book, you kind of joke about the death of Casey Anthony's baby, Princess Diana surviving so many landmines, and who she dated. I mean, do you feel like there are boundaries ever, even if it makes people uncomfortable or offend people, or what?
Life is very tough, and if you can make a joke to make something easier and funny, do it. Done. Do it. That's all. Darlene, I don't know what your life has been like, but I have a lot of people who have gone through hell. And if you can Winston Churchill said, if you make someone laugh, you give them a little vacation. And maybe you take the worst thing in the world and make it funny. It's a vacation for a minute from horror.
Yeah, and people love to laugh. I mean, clearly that's why people love you. But they also know that you have some shock value to you. I mean, on the cover of your book, you're wearing a fur, and you knew that there would probably be animal rights activists.
This whole interview is becoming a defensive interview.
No!
Are you wearing leather shoes?
Yes!
Shut up.
I'm talking...
You know what I mean? I don't want to hear. You're wearing fur. You're wearing leather shoes.
I'm not an activist, but I'm saying
You're eating chicken.
Yeah.
You're eating meat. I don't want to hear this nonsense. Come to me with a paper belt, and I'll talk to you.
But you did hear it in some of those press conferences. There were people who were upset, and you're just saying,
no, I'm going. I really am going, because all you have done is negative.
No.
All you have done is negative. I haven't heard I made people laugh for 50 years. I am put on earth to make people laugh. My book is funny. I wear fur that was killed 15 years ago. I work for animal rights. Stop it with, and you do this, and you're mean, and you're that. You are not the one to interview a person who does humor. Sorry.
Are we serious?
Good for her. Boy, we could sure use her around now, eh? Good for her. I like that line, by the way. I haven't verified it. Winston Churchill says, if you make someone laugh, you give them a little vacation. That's perfect, isn't that? That's so true. Yeah, what an era we're in now. You know what? Can you call up the Ricky Gervais Yaniv tweet? It was from Halloween, October 31. Ricky Gervais has a little bit of that make jokes you're not supposed to in him, but not as much as Joan Rivers. And Joan Rivers it was her whole shtick, right? And in his own way, Ricky Gervais is a little bit woke. I mean, he's a real anti-Christian activist. And listen, vive la différence, I'm not here to censor him, but he in his own way can be very woke and a little bit tiresome. But at least he's consistent. I think one of the reasons he doesn't like Christianity is he doesn't like its limits. And Christianity is a religion like Judaism that limits you. I mean, I think most religions actually do. And Ricky Gervais doesn't like to be limited. Look at this. This is what he tweeted on Halloween. He said, I was going to dress up as something weird and creepy for my Halloween party, but I'm bucking the trend this year, and I'm going as brave female activist Jessica Yaniv. And then he's just Ricky Gervais, so he adds in, this also means I don't have to wax my big old hairy balls. And look at that. Oh, my Lord, thunder and Jesus. And then scroll down. What's the view count on that? 39.4 thousand likes, 5,000 retweets. Based on my own Twitter experience, I'm guessing that was watched, that was seen like 4 million times. That is a terrifying picture. So maybe Ricky Gervais has a little bit of that Joan Rivers in him, because what are you going to do? You going to laugh or you going to cry? It's better to laugh, ain't it? Eric Tass, $5. All glory to Supreme Leader Comrade Justin Castro Trudeau. Yeah. All right. Well, enough. Oh, there's one more super chat there. Let me see if I can find it. I can't find it, so maybe I'll, if you can. Oh, there we go. Why are white people always painted as being racist? Immigrants all have racial and or religious supremacy ideologies. Well, that's the thing, is I think all people have an affinity for people like themselves. The old wisdom, birds of a feather stick together. One of the things about religion is that religions generally are exclusive, as in you are one religion, you can't also be another religion because they're contradictory. They're irreconcilable. So by definition, if you hold a set of beliefs, that means you don't hold another set of beliefs. So it's natural to have disagreements based on religion and based on culture. I think when it gets to disagreements based on race alone, the color of your skin, I think that that is more a form of bigotry than an intellectual, ideological, or religious disagreement, which is based on doctrine. But because people from different cultures or religions, there's sometimes a correlation between religion and race, or nationality and race. Race becomes a shorthand, and I think we have to be careful about that. Because that shorthand is not accurate and it's not fair. But when it comes to disagreeing with people based on religion or values, I think that is fair. I think that's the essence of all politics, in fact. And politics tries to reconcile those differences peacefully. Politics doesn't try to reconcile race because there's nothing to reconcile. It's not an inherent disagreement, whereas religious or cultural or other customs are. I don't know if that made any sense. I want to talk a little bit about Bernard Hutchinson says, what do you think of the LGBTQ2 Poppy? Well, you know, yesterday our Kean Bexley hopped on a plane and went out to Manitoba and found the gal, the teenage girl herself, and her dad. And how long is that whole video? It's not more than 6 or 7 minutes, right? Oh, it's 9 minutes, eh? Well, why don't we, I might ask you to skip it or to cut it short, but why don't you play the whole thing so we intro the subject for our viewers. So we heard about this teenager. We heard she was suspended because she wouldn't wear the multicolor rainbow LGBTQ poppy. So Kean got right on the case, and he found out, first of all, that she wasn't suspended for not wearing that poppy. She was suspended for criticizing that poppy. I don't even know if they had the poppy on the school, but she was criticized for writing her thoughts down and posting them on bulletin boards. And let me know when we got that. By the way, can you just show protectourpoppies.com? We put up a petition to support this girl, and last I checked, we had like 11,000 people overnight. Protect our poppies. Grade 11 student kicked out of school. Can you scroll down? I want to see how many we have. There we go. 13,991 signatures. Do you see that right there? Okay, so that's the petition. Why don't we show the video? I don't know if we have time for the whole thing, but here's Kean Oh, I think the video just crashed there, so we'll reboot it again. Kian went out there, found the student, talked to her, found her dad, talked to him, found the principal, talked to him, found the superintendent, talked to her. Are we down on the video side? Yeah. I think Kian's doing some great reporting, don't you? From the field. I mean, one day he's in Ottawa, one day he's in Winnipeg, one day he's in the States somewhere. I think he's just really been killing it. So here he was out there in, I think it's called Stonewall, Manitoba. I've never been there, but here, take a look. Oh, we gotta get the audio. In the meantime, I'll have some of this Canada Dry Club Soda. Just stand with us, folks. Bear with us. I'll read some chats in the meantime. Oh, here we go.
Stonewall Collegiate School in Stonewall, Manitoba. It's become the center of a Poppy-related controversy where a student ended up getting expelled for posting posters around the school saying that she wants the Poppy to remain the Poppy that every Canadian knows and honors. Members of the faculty wanted Natalie and her school friends to don an abridged version of the Poppy, an LGBT rainbow version of the Poppy, and Natalie simply wasn't having any of it. I caught up with Natalie and her father earlier today. Natalie, would you be able to tell me how this all started?
It started when a few teachers and students started to try to force their beliefs and their ways of living onto us by saying that we should wear a multicolored poppy during our Remembrance Day service today at school. But I feel strongly against it. My grandparents, they fought in the war. They might not have died, but like they still did it, so that has a big impact on my life. And so I decided that I would go to school, type up some papers of my opinions and how I was feeling and my beliefs about it. And I went around and I taped them up on the walls of the school, and they instantly got taken down. And the principals pulled me into the office and began to yell at me and accuse me of hate crime and hate speech. It was not intended to be in any way hateful or a hate crime. It was intended to be me voicing my opinions, beliefs, and how I felt about things.
She was suspended, and I quote from Mr. Castle's words, that she was being suspended for hate speech. And when I tried to defend her and the other girl involved, he started raising her voice, and that's when I ended the meeting and left.
Now, do you think it was hate speech?
No, there's nothing hateful in it. She's voicing her opinion, which they're taught in school, that everybody has an opinion, but unfortunately it's been, you're allowed to have an opinion as long as it doesn't offend a certain group, whether it be LGBTQ or a race or a religion or anything. If it offends, you're supposed to keep it to yourself, and that's not how I taught my daughter.
Now, you're saying that your friends were speaking to you in support on the Stonewall Facebook page, and the comments disappeared, but you have screenshots. Can you explain?
I can't explain why they're not on there, and I'm going to be forever grateful for everybody's support with it. There's been so much, and I know there's a lot of students that had commented helpful and supportful and kind words on there, and all of them were just gone by this morning.
Now, Natalie tells me a few interesting things. She tells me that the school suspended her for posting a poster. The school says that it was hate speech. That's Section 319 of the Canadian Criminal Code. It's a serious violation, and it's something that can send you to prison. This was not hate speech, though. This poster was merely an exercise of her right to freedom of expression and speech, and the school suspended her for it. I spoke to some of her classmates, and here's what they said about the school's suspension policy. How does it make you feel that the school administration has suspended a friend of yours for speaking what she believes?
I honestly feel like we've been let down by the school because they're supposed to support us through everything, and the fact that they banned her or suspended her, for hate speech. Like, no one here gets suspended for bullying, so it's weird.
How do you feel?
I think it's really stupid because, like she said, no one does get suspended for bullying. You just get a warning and a talk, but she just got a suspension for stating her own opinion.
Now, do you agree with what she was saying? Do you think that the Poppy should remain the Poppy?
Yes, it should, because it's been for everyone that was in the war, and lately a lot of people in the LGBT community have been making a lot of stuff about them, so I don't really think they should take the Poppy and make it something just for the LGBTQ community.
And what do you think about that?
Like Kayla said, I think the Poppy should remain the red because it signifies like all the veterans and the trouble that they went through in World War I and World War II and so on and so forth. I honestly find the rainbow poppy a very stupid idea from the LGBTQ community because we are both part of it, but we disagree with the rainbow poppy. Like, it's unnecessary.
Now, the school won't suspend bullies, but they'll suspend someone for exercising their free speech.
It's a great report by Kian. I recommend you watch the whole thing in full. You can sign the petition at protectourpoppies.com. I don't know if you caught that. Both of those teenagers there that Kian was talking to, they're LGBTQ community too. I have no idea what that means. But they think this whole thing's BS. It's interesting that they said that the school will not suspend bullies, but they will bully this young teenager for expressing her point of view to the point of suspending her. But it looks like her dad is very supportive of her. I liked the interview with her and her dad. I thought that was great. Listen, I think that we did some good reporting there, and the Kean was right on. We talked to the principal and the superintendent. They didn't say much. They sort of ran away from him. I want to show you just one more quick thing. We got 7 minutes left. Did I miss any super chats as they came in, man? No, okay. I want to show you one more thing. Why don't we just jump in? We got 6 minutes left. Can you start my video on the 11,000 scientists? Because it sort of explains things more. Yeah, I mean, I know it's too long, but did you see the stories in this past week about 11,000 scientists who issued a research study report that we're all going to die from global warming? And I thought to myself, you know what? That don't sound right. So I found the report online, and it's not a research report. It's an editorial. It's a 4-page editorial. It's marked Viewpoint. And I started looking into it. I did a long video. It's almost 20 minutes. Obviously, I only have 6 minutes left. But instead of me preambling it, why don't I just show you the first couple minutes, and then we're going to jump ahead to the last part where I found an awesome name on this list. Here, take a look. Unless you've been living in a cave with no internet service for the past few days, there's simply no way you haven't heard the official news narrative from the media party that 11,000 scientists signed an emergency letter warning the world that we're all going to die because of global warming. It was everywhere. Identical stories, really. Absolute stenography. It's like they just republished a press release verbatim. Here's just one example from Justin Trudeau's CPC state broadcaster in Canada, but all the networks were just as bad. Here, listen to this kook read the news. Listen to her tone of voice.
In recent months, climate emergencies have been declared by Canada and a number of other countries. I'm sure you've heard them. Cities have also sounded the alarm. Well, this morning, in a brand new declaration, 11,000 scientists from 153 countries are bolstering that claim. Here's some of what's in that declaration published in the journal Bioscience. The Alliance of World Scientists says it has a moral obligation to warn humanity. It says greenhouse gas emissions are still rising and that recent efforts to reduce them are not enough. The declaration also says the climate crisis is accelerating faster than many scientists predicted, that it's caused even more damage than many had feared. The Alliance says it had to speak out. Why? Because climate change is threatening ecosystems and, get this, the fate of humanity. Scary words there. The fate of humanity. CBC senior science reporter Nicole Mortellaro is going through this report. Nicole, I know it's a big one, lots of dense information, but 11,000 scientists signed on. That's got to mean something.
What a nut. Her name is Suhana Maharshand. It won't surprise you to know that she's the ex of Adam Vaughan, an extremist MP from Toronto. What an incestuous little world it is, the CBC and the Liberal Party. But let's slow down what she said a bit. It wasn't a big report, in fact. It's not a big report at all. It's not research. It's not a study. It has a few charts in it, but there's no research, nothing new here. It's an op-ed, an opinion editorial. Here's the actual publication, as seen on the Oxford University Press website that published it. You see the category it's in? Do you see that? It says right there, viewpoint. See that in yellow at the bottom? Viewpoint. It's not a study. It's a rant. If you click on it, you can view it as a PDF. And you can see again, right at the top, we put it in yellow. It says viewpoint, right? And let me read the first few sentences to show you how science-y this is. Scientists have a moral obligation to clearly warn humanity of any catastrophic threat and to tell it like it is. On the basis of this obligation and the graphical indicators presented below, we declare, with more than 11,000 scientist signatories from around the world, clearly and unequivocally that planet... Anyways, I go through it and show it's not a report, it's not science-y, but then I start going through the names. There's 11,000 signatories, but there's no vetting. You just went to a website. It's like liking something on Facebook. Now, there are some legitimate people here. I actually couldn't find any climate scientists. I found students, I found, retired medical, family physicians, I found, clerks. They're all good people, I'm sure, but they're not scientists. And I was going through all the Canadian names. There's about 400 or 500 Canadian names. I went through all of them. I started with the A's, and I was just getting frustrated. But by the time I got to the W's, I found this one guy. And I won't lie, after going through all the other names, it was like I found an oasis in the desert. Here, take a look at Hans Weinhold, who I found. I was working my way through the Canadians alphabetically, and I was tired and bored, and then I came across this lad, Hans Weinhold, from Mohawk College. And his expertise, as you can see, is listed as BS detection and analysis. Now, I've gone through a few hundred of these now, so I'm thinking BS, that could mean Bachelor of Science. And detection and analysis sounds like something you might say if you're a global warming scientist. But maybe it's just what it looks like. BS as in bullshit. I was already all the way down to the W's now, so I was tired, but I Googled the guy. And I found his Facebook page. That's him in the mask there, I think. And I don't know if you could see, but he put his job down as welfare. Well, so far, as you can see, I discovered no information to suggest he's not real. I mean, I already showed you some hardline lefty professors. So this guy's an Antifa goon in a mask, maybe, and saying he takes welfare? Well, tell me half these bureaucrats I've shown you do anything more than just waste your tax dollars all day, $100,000 a year in some useless field of study. I mean, I really like Mariko, but seriously, what's she doing studying relationships and posting selfies that 1,000 girls aren't doing on Instagram, but I don't have to subsidize them through my tax? But this guy, Hans Weinhold, is that him there? This is from his Facebook page. Is that him catching a fish? That's very environmental. But look at that hat. Is that a Trump hat? Does that make America great again? And what's this? Look at this picture. Is that an InfoWars shirt? And here he is in a yellow vest, and he's wearing a Make Canada Great Again hat. I think that's one of ours here from the Rebel. And look at this from his Facebook page. I won't even read it. I'll just let you enjoy it. My friends, I think I found the one guy on the entire list of 11,000 people who has a sense of humor, who signed it as a joke to prove it was a joke. I actually think he's probably kidding about being on welfare too. I went through his Facebook. Anyhow, if you got the time, find that video on our website. I go through the non-joke signatories, and they're actually more of a joke than Hans, who I've since learned actually drives a cab in Hamilton. That's a real job, at least, unlike a lot of the quacks who sign this thing. Well, folks, it's 1:01. There's a couple of super chats. Let me just give a shout out to Prim Pal 08, who chips in $10 about this very subject. And Phoenix 96, who said ethnic linguistic groups with in-group preference is human nature's default as a guarantor for intergenerational continuity in tradition, culture, and nation, lest they disappear. Distinguished from prejudice, which is racism. That's a very good point. Folks, it's 1:02. We've gone a little bit long, but let me just show you. I was reading there in the super chats, lots of people saying I'm looking really like a toiger. Actually, I'm kidding around. There wasn't a single super chat to that effect. But I published a tweet yesterday that got a good reaction. I said, down 18 pounds in 2 months, taking inspiration wherever I can find it. And this is not actually my real plate. But I saw this plate, and I thought that plate would work. That plate would work. Pizza and bread are the enemy. There's a lot of truth there. Protein, chocolate doesn't count. Go easy on the nuts. Control your portion size. You fat, friendly fellow. So yeah, I think that's a Hallmark card right there. I think that's sort of like that's a ringtone on a phone. I think that's something that you meditate to. And my friends, on that note, it's 1:03, so I'll say goodbye until tonight at 8 p.m. when I do my daily paywalled show. Goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.